Hello beer tubers and welcome to yet another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppets of another holiday beer, seasonal release. This time from Belgium, and it's two beers. Oh, that was four fingers, two beers. And that I got from my boss, Frederick. So thanks a ton to Frederick for the beers. Two legendary beers from the Dolle in Belgium. And we're checking out their 23 Stille Nacht and their Stille Nacht Special Reserva from 2021. So for some reason, with the newest release here of Stille Nacht Reserva, they decided to put it in small bottles. They've done that once or twice before, I think. But otherwise, it's been in 750s with foil tops and whatnot. But for some reason, it came out in this format. This beer, Stille Nacht, the regular beer, is out every single year as a seasonal release. Very famous beer. If you've not heard of this, this is one of the most famous Dolle beers and one of the must-drink Christmas beers of Europe. Like especially of Belgian ones. If I had to pick two must-try Belgians, Stille Nacht and Golden Carola's Christmas. I think those are like the biggest must-tries, even though there are some other nice ones. Like Gordon's Xmas is also pretty nice, and what's it called? Causendunk Christmas is also very nice. But these are quite special beers. So basically, as far as I remember, it's like one malt, and I think it's English malt. Is it Golden Promise or Maris Otter or something like that? And then they use EKG or Poperidge hops. But they use English hops and they use whole cone hops and they use loads. And they also use candied sugar in it to amplify the ABV of the beer. And it's a big beer for this brewery, and they are cooked in a direct fire kettle for a long time to get the color, the more dark amber color. That's all from boiling in a direct fire kettle. And then it's fermented and released after conditioning. But then every year they take some and they age it in barrels, and those barrel-aged versions have always been legendary beers. Really old money hype beers too. A lot of people traded for them back in the day. I had a lot of bottles at one point back in the day. I think it's the 2010 vintage Reserva of Stille Nacht, and I used that to trade for American stuff. I'm not sure if you could do that still to this day, but back then you could. And it was a lovely beer. The Lord of Malts and I rated it, and we praised it to the heavens. I think we might have given it like 95 to 98, something like that. Often they are aged, the Stille Nacht Reservas, in red wine barrels. Often it's been like Bordeaux barrels and stuff like that. But as far as I could gather this year, it just says a mix of our favorite barrels. So a few different ones. But I also think actually this came out in a larger bottle format. Oh, it's the bottle is sticky. The glue from the that's so money. Glue from the label is coming off. But I think they might have produced some big bottles too, because I saw a post with bigger bottles. But hey, I don't mind small bottle formats of barrel-aged beers, especially when they're strong as this one. So let's start off with the 23 Stille Nacht, see how it is fresh, and then see how it is aged in barrels. I think I had something more to say about this beer, but I actually do not remember. So it is 10 or 12%, I believe. 12% ABV. Highly carved, as with most of Dolle beers. I mean, look at that. You can just, it looks like champagne in the glass. The head retention on the fresh one is just crazy nuts. When you poured it out, it was just like this massive foaming head. The barrel-aged one is a different story. It still has a decent amount of CO2, but it's no way near the same levels. So it's got this like copperish, golden orange hue. It's got a white head. Let's check out the aroma on the 23 Stille Nacht. And Merry Christmas, we're almost there. Oh, really nice. Really warm and inviting, but also very fruity. I'm getting loads of stewed and candied fruitiness and dried fruitiness. Dried apricots, dried dates, sultanas, but also like a fresh vibrant fruitiness, some stewed pear, and definitely black pepper kind of spice, maybe a hint of coriander. But there's no spices in Stille Nacht. It's all about like yeast character and the ingredients in the process. Because I think Golden Carolus has a secret, for example, selection of spices, and Causendunk Christmas also has. If we're talking those beers, they're from fairly larger breweries compared to the Dolle. But yeah, lots of that kind of appley or stewed pear, but also appley aromas. And there's a perfumey vibe to it as well. Sweet kind of bready malt, almost like sugar-coated toast or sugar-coated like brioche. Because there's like breadiness that's sugary. And maybe even a hint of, maybe not so much toffee, but there is definitely like some sweeter sugar notes. Let's try it. Cheers. And thanks to Frederick for the beer. The beers. My voice disappeared twice. Really rich. Really flavorsome beer. Surprisingly bitter, more bitter than I remember. I can't remember when the last time was I had one of these. It might have been a year or two ago. I've used it in the Grand Christmas calendar when I've been in charge of Europe sometimes because I wanted the guys to try this. But I think they, at that point, they can't enjoy it. It's a very strong beer. It's very warming, highly effervescent, and loads of flavor. It's a beer that's very fun to age. Loads of vibrant, bright fruitiness as well. There is the stewed fruitiness. It's very similar to like some British ales in its fruitiness, but then it has like phenolics and spice that you do not get in English ales. And also like the candy sugar sweetness and the higher ABV. A little bit warming going down. There's some pepper, there's some spice. That phenolic, almost clovey, otherwise black pepper flavor. Almost like a little bit of a slight bitter herby tone to it. But otherwise it's like sultanas, it's dried apricots, it's like dried stone fruits. And then a little bit of that brighter snappiness of like a crisp apple or even like a, what's it called? An Asian pear. Or a quince, something along those lines. The snappiness of that, but softness at the same time. And then also maybe a touch of like fresh, vibrant green apple or something like that. Or just, again, the stewed kind of compote-y like apple and pear flavors. Maybe not compote, but stewed. Really good, really complex beer. Awesome. It tastes like Stille Nacht, and it's what makes this Christmassy. I think the warmth and the spice for me. Also the slightly autumnal flavors to it. Really good, really old money. But let's dive on to the 21 Reserva. I'm really excited about this. Back in the day, I loved these. So you can see it's been aged in barrels. It's definitely gotten a little bit darker and more oxidized. The head is not as big and intense because the CO2 levels seem to be lighter. It's more deep orange. Let's check out the aroma on the Reserva that's aged in various barrels. See, it completely changes character. It's almost got like a funkiness to it or something like that. Like loads of vineyards grape qualities. And like the caramelized honey and sherry and port wine. It's almost smells like a bit Haute Brune-like or something like that. Because there's acidity to it as well. Like slight lactic acidity. And by all means, often on purpose, or not often, it is on purpose. Like many of the Reserva beers from the Dolle, they have slightly sour profiles, and it really suits the beers. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of warming spice to it as well, like a touch of cinnamon, and creamy, custardy woodiness and vanilla. And also the stewed fruitiness is there and the peary nuances, but it feels more like apple pie filling almost than like just stewed fruits. And also like the dry dark fruits. It smells really freaking good. Let's give it a taste. Cheers. Thanks again to Freddie. Wow. Oh, that is it's really good. But what a different beer. It's a completely different beast after barrel aging. Wow. It's more drinkable, it's more complex, and then you got the acidity as well. Like I think it's lactic bacteria that gets into the beer. I'm not sure if it's actually just because they use wine barrels or they actually do something to add something. Because I think they also at one point used in Urbier the original Rodenbach yeast. I'm not sure if they still have that, but that was like in some of the first batches of that beer. The Reserva version of that beer is also like more of a sour beer that's also in the red wine barrels. I'm not sure if they inoculate it with anything or if it's just because they get wine barrels and then use them for aging and you get these flavors. But it's so nice, so vinous and complex and soft and delicate, but vibrant and flavorsome at the same time. Like there's so much going on, but it's all wrapped up in like a more soft, delicate blanket compared to this that's a bit more hissy and fizzy in your face. The vanilla is there, the grape qualities is there. There's a little bit of sherry. There's a little bit of port wine, kind of like a vintage port or a ruby port, not the sweeter, kind of like tawny port type flavors. It feels less sweet than the non-barrel aged version, which makes sense because it's set in barrels. So you'd have whatever was in the barrels going into the beer and then diluting it a little bit and giving extra flavors. But so many layers. There's almost like a little bit of a sour green strawberry or something about it, or a little the slightest touch of balsamic vinegar or red wine vinegar or something like that. Just it's not really a vinegary beer. It's just like sour, not really crazy sour, just a little bit, because there's also still a substantial malt sweetness, like sweet. May taste a bit more caramelly right now, but also still that sweet bitterness. But I think that like caramel thing just comes from the aging. With oxidization of beers, you can develop some interesting flavor. And it might also just be my mind playing me, just I'm thinking there is a slightly more caramelly flavor just because of the color and everything. But there's just something to me that's just slightly more caramel-esque. Maybe even lightly nutty too. And tannic. That's also a big difference. It has drying tannins, kind of like in a wine. Wow, that is really good and insanely complex. There's so much going on. Think like Belgian strong ale meets Oud Bruin / Flemish red and like grape ales or something like that. Like ales with grapes or grape barrel aging. I wouldn't say lambic because it's not like funky per se, but like it almost feels like something towards trying to make wild beer or something like that. But it's without funk or anything. It's just got like a sourness, but it's not like heftily sour. It's light. But wow, two completely different beers. That's one of the beautiful wonders with barrel aging when you work with barrels that can give stuff like this to a beer where it works. Like, if you got these blind, I think it would be hard for a lot of people, I think everyone, to say that this here is this beer in barrels. Because they just taste so vastly different. So this also says it's 12%. But yeah. Beautiful beers. Beautiful, beautiful beers. But, man, Reserva takes the cake. In terms of a grade, I'm thinking fresh Stille Nacht from 23. Not my favorite vintage. I don't know. It's really good. I'm just not super excited about it. I'm pretty fucking stoked on the barrel aged version. So yeah, like a 91, 92, something like that, early 90s. I think when I had this, I actually also reviewed this as one of the first beers I ever reviewed on the channel. When I reviewed a Christmas calendar of beers from a local bottle shop, an advent calendar, and I think I gave it a 98, just the regular version back then. The barrel aged, probably around the same territory later, but I don't feel like the 98 type territory with it right now. But I think this is still world-class barrel-aged Dolle beer, because that's what it is. It's hard to put this in a box. It really is. It is. It's the close. As I said, it's got things from Belgian flavors from the base. It's got like Oud Bruin, kind of Flemish red type sourness, and then you got like the grape kind of beers in there as well because of all that wine character from the barrels. So yeah, it's really hard to put in a box, but world class 95. Really, really, really dope beer. Is it Christmassy? I don't know. But serve this with your duck. This would cut through things so nicely. A lot of people tend to pair Christmas foods with really heavy beers. Like you have really heavy food with really heavy beer. I think well, this is really heavy beer, but the acidity and brightness and wine barrel character of this would really cut through something like Fatty Duck really nicely. So yeah, 95, wonderful, world-class stuff. So awesome to try this beer again. So thanks a ton, Freddie. That was really dope. So if you guys had a chance to try the 23 Stille Nacht and the 21 Special Reserva of Stille Nacht, let me know what you thought of the beers. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and tune in on Instagram. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm going to say cheers in a really damn delicious, very unique barrel-aged beer. And see you guys in another beer review.